Professor Ganti Suryanarayana Murthy is the National Coordinator of the Indian Knowledge Systems Division, Ministry of Education, Government of India at AICTE, New Delhi. He is also a professor in the Department of Biosciences and Biomedical Engineering at IIT Indore. He was among the distinguished guest speakers at the second Global Vedic Conference held at Prasanthi Nilayam in January 2026, where he contributed valuable insights from the perspective of Indian knowledge systems and contemporary science and education.
First of all, my humble pranams to all of you. And Shruti says that a society to be prosperous should not make a business or sell vidya, vaidyam and bhojanam, so ahara. So education, health and food. These should not be made into big businesses is what the Shruti says. And I was so happy to see the embodiment of that Vedic ideal here. In all of, so although you mentioned Sri Sathya Sai Institute for Higher Learning, but I also think that cannot stand independently without the Prasanthi Nilayam. I mean, it's all part of that ecosystem. And that kind of thought process, as you were mentioning earlier, that this is the society, the kind of things that our rishis were imagining, where we really strive for the amrutatva in every action that we do and then see divinity in everything. That's really something that I was blessed to be part of for last one day. And it was a real blessing to be here and to see the kind of commitment that of all people here and things like that. You know, they say that when great gurus and great people walk, who are living embodiments of the divine themselves, they walk in a place, live in a place, that place itself becomes holy. And that becomes something that will inspire. Even when they are not there in their physical body, that place continues to inspire. And I saw that spirit and experienced it firsthand through all the seva bhava of all the people here, in the way, that loving way in which they were smilingly helping out, serving everybody. This was something that just touched my heart. So it was a blessing of the Swami that I could be here, I guess. Otherwise, you don't come to such places just like that. And may these ideals rooted in our Rishi visions, the Bharatiyatva, inspire us all and as we go forward. And to, as we say, the motto of the IKS division is basically, let us strive for the wisdom that ensures the welfare of all. Bhadrayam sumatau yatema. So maybe we all should, may that inspire us towards that kind of a vision. So, thank you.
Beautiful, sir. I think the point that you mentioned, that Vidya and Vaidya and Annam, the food, they should be offered without any commercial strings attached to them. In not even 10 years since India's independence, that's when the first general hospital came, which Bhagwan set up here. If you see everything that Bhagwan has set up and Bhagwan has inspired all of us to lead, it was all about going back to the roots and doing it with the true spirit of how the discipline should be practiced.
Another thing that struck me was there were no donation boxes.
No donation boxes, yes.
Yeah, because if you are talking about a spirit of giving with love, then you don't need to put these boxes here and there and yeah.
I think when you tap the goodness that is there in every heart, the power of that is definitely beyond our imagination.
Rishis never thought small.
Yes.
They considered thinking small to be a sin.
Correct.
It was a papa to think small. You have to think for the world. You think for. They never said only these people should be sukhina santu. This.
Yes.
They said sarve bhavantu sukhina.
Yes. Yes.
And then they didn't invite only one sect of people. They said, Vishve Amritasya Putraha. They addressed everybody like that.
Yes.
Shrunvantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha. That's how they addressed.
Yes. And that's the reason why here, every bhajan session here ends with Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu.
Yes.
Everyone should be happy. And Prasanthi does not have any distinction in all the institutions. Everybody is welcome, no matter.
And that kind of an inclusive excellence is the spirit of real Bharatiyata.
Yes.
And I think when Swamiji was doing his work here, in his physical embodiment, but his work continues though. So I think that is something that I think he inculcated, that pursuing what our Rishis said and pursuing something that is hitakara for the nation itself. They are not two different things. They are the one and the same. And then doing something good for the world. And that's how we become a Vishwaguru. Otherwise, that's how we inspire others.
Bhagwan used to always mention, way back in the 90s, even much before that, he used to always say, right from the 60s, that Bharat is going to become the Vishwaguru. Bharat is the Vishwaguru. It is going to become the Vishwaguru. And at that point in time, when you heard that, as a student, I used to have, Swami, where is it going to happen?
We see the other side of things that, normally for them, it doesn't matter. They know that these things are things that can be overcome.
Mm-hmm. But today we are seeing
the
that
buds
wave.
of that.
Yeah, we are seeing that wave. Today, when someone says that Bharat is on the cusp of becoming the Vishwaguru, then you feel, it's just happening.
That is very true. That is very true.
If you look at our Vedic culture, what is good for the world, they wanted to give it free. During the time of COVID, India went out of the way to help the world.
Exactly. That is a Bharatiya spirit.
That is the Bharatiya
That is the spirit of Bharat. And a Rishi would have done the same thing.
Exactly.
Look at countless examples that we have. Rishi Maharshi Dadichi gave his own backbone for the creation of Vajrayudha. So many rishis gave up their lives. Otherwise, they could have achieved their individual moksha, but they didn't stop there. They came into the Janasamanya, took so much pains to help us all out.
I think there are countless rishis who have contributed to the heritage that we have, and we don't even know who they are. And many times we ascribe many things to one particular rishi, or like you have so many treaties and so many scriptures where you think it is Adi Shankaracharya. We don't know so many people have contributed to it.
Even there, you bring a very interesting point, because there, for example, there is I'll bring something tangential just to emphasize that point. In agriculture, there are many texts that have been written in Shastra Parampara, because that's an established Shastra. In 18th or 17th century, in Kerala, there was a text in Malayalam. It's called Krishi Gita. And it says in that very Pitika that it is written by Parashurama. Now you tell me, how can it be written by Parashurama in 17th, 18th century? But the people were not even willing to put their own names. That's how selfless they were. Basically, that person could have been from the Parashurama Gotra or lineage. So he said, so similarly, they will actually say, I'm Bharadwaja or something.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean Bharadwaja wrote it. Somebody from their lineage must have written. Look at or Maharshi Veda Vyasa.
Yes.
What does his name mean? Vyasa means somebody who wrote, compiled. Compiler, that's all he said. Nobody even wanted the names.
Yes.
Because, you see, when you're tapping into the universal wisdom that is there, the Chaitanya that is there, universal Chaitanya, then you can't see these small petty boundaries.
Correct.
They transcend those, and then that's why those things are everlasting. Anything that is petty will be washed out by the time.
Swami also said that I have come for Vedodharana, Veda Poshana, Vidvat Poshana, Dharma Stapana through Vedodharana. That's what Bhagwan declared, way back in the 60s. He set up a Gurukul here, Veda Pathshala, way back in the 1960s. What started then, today you have not just few students of a Veda Pathshala which Swami started, but later on it became the university. The whole Sri Sathya University in all its campuses, everybody chants Vedam and everybody is into the Vedic way of life in the modern context.
That's a very good point, because because of various invasions that we had and all the colonial impacts that we had, our education system kind of went into dormancy, and then there was active sabotaging of the education system, because see, you cannot rule people who are independent mind, who have an independent mind, who are independent thinkers, who are basically who derive inspiration from the divine, that universal divine, then you can't rule them, because absolutely not possible. So now where do you hit? You hit at that education system, which was basically providing that. So that's essentially what the Britishers did to a large extent. And then they impoverished the nation. See, the thing is, they impoverished the nation in such a way that we were really scrambling for even 2 square meals. That's how a country that had not seen famines, I mean, maybe they had seen 2 or 3 famines in 500 years, they were seeing famines every other decade. And millions were dying because of artificially created famines. Yes. And that's how much India was squeezed of its all wealth. And then, now on top of that, you have removed the thing that inspires the people, changed the education system to something that would actually make them clerks, turn them into clerks who follow orders given by their bosses. And that's the kind of education system that we had. And so now after independence, and especially after the NEP 2020, now we are thinking, how do we really not just have an education system that creates, that is, the prayojan of the entire education system is not job at the end of it, but something beyond, character building. As you know, Swami Vivekananda ji said, all of these people have said, how do you build character into our children? And as we go about that, one of the things that we have to think about is science has progressed. While the colonial exploitation, all of those things were going on, the knowledge also has progressed even in the West. And now we are having this Bharatiya Jnana Parampara or Indian knowledge systems. And then we have the modern advancements that are there. But then there we have to understand one thing though. See, the reason why they are advanced is because of the hard work of millions of people, scientists, everybody who have worked tirelessly for 400 years. That is there. But then the thing is, what was the prayojana? That is something that we have to really understand. So if you look at most of the Western sciences or even the advancements that we talk in technologies, the primary uddesha was to master the nature. Mm-hmm. Because they wanted to have the swamitva, or basically nature was seen as a wild place that has to be conquered. So you see, even this guy who went up the Everest, Mount Everest, when he was asked, why did you conquer it? He said, just because it is there. Why did you go up? He said, just because it is there, I have to conquer it. See, that kind of a mindset where you want to conquer the nature is at the root of all the science and technological advance today. And what that does lead to in the long term is, in short term, it may lead to things that are advancing. That knowledge advance will happen because people are doing tapasya. Yes. But see, it is like a directionless compass.
Yes.
So, and you know what? But then it's very powerful.
Yes.
And if you think about the modern education system, which has no compass, moral compass, but it's very powerful.
Yes.
And is ending up empowering our students in a very, very powerful technologies.
Yes.
People, in our Shastras, even in Puranas, people who have extremely high strength, but have no moral compass, you know what they're called? They're called asuras. So our education system is making asuras. Because what is happening there is, we are not providing them the direction. And that is where the Indian knowledge systems comes in. Because that is that Bharatiyatva, bringing in that Bharatiya perspective, the Bharatiya drashti of why should we do something. So it's like teaching responsibility, teaching everything so that we can actually hand over this powerful knowledge and that will be used for the welfare of all. Otherwise, we are seeing so much technological advance. And you see other countries are fighting over petty things. Why is that happening despite all technological advances? Because the fundamental drushti is somewhere that needs to be changed. That's where the vision of Bharatiya Jnana Parampara needs to be incorporated into the education system so that becomes the Atma of the education system. And then what will happen is, we still have to use all of these technologies. We are not talking about discarding any of these technologies, but with a different drishti. And therefore, that will lead to something that will change the students, and it will not create asuras, it will create suras, the devatas. So that's the kind of thing that we need to be looking into our educational system. I think that's the fundamental level, that is the point. And when we talk about Bharatiya Drishti, it will come into every field as well. So one is at a very philosophical level, this is the thing that we are talking about. What is the purpose of education has to be inculcated into and brought into our education system and inculcated in every student. Now, in each discipline though, we have to bring in that Bharatiya Drishti. So let's say we talk about Ayurveda and health. So what is Ayurveda's perspective on health? They say swastasya swastya rakshanam, aturasya rogashamanam. Protect the health of the healthy first. Then you make sure that anybody who has disease, remove their disease. So where is the primary importance? To protect the health of the healthy. Because that is the majority of the population. You want to make sure that they don't fall ill first. That should be the focus of a medical system. And now what do we do in the modern this thing? We say that, okay, we'll treat your disease and it stops there. What does injecting Bharatiya Drishti into that mean? It will mean that we actually follow up and make sure that the underlying causes which created those, let's say, type 2 diabetes, which is a lifestyle disease, we address those underlying things and not just be satisfied by giving a pill. And that will change the entire approach to medicine. And it will talk about the doctor should be feeling sad that somebody is coming to my hospital, because they should be addressing the issues beforehand so that nobody comes to your hospital. And that should be celebrated as a success of a hospital with no patients, because there are nobody to treat. And I think that is a Bharatiya Drishti we might have to inject. It will take time. But so what that means is people will fall ill. So we need all kinds of hospitals, everything there. Along with that, we also need this kind of an integration so that the drishti changes. So that's there. Similarly, think about education system. Same thing here. We can't purpose the education system to be job creation, only for a job. It has to create jobs, but with a drishti that it is more than jobs, it is also about the creation of the good character in the people. Because the kind of challenges that children face today, you can't predict them. You can't give one skill and then say this is good enough for your job. That may be good for 5 years, 10 years. After that, it will become redundant. But then if you give the principles, they will actually be able to go forward. Now think about pick up any other area, economics. What is a Bharatiya Drishti? It is not Shunya Labha of communists or Shuddha Labha of capitalists. It is Shubha Labha. I will strive hard to get Labha, profit. That profit motive has to be there. But then it is also talking about Shubha, the welfare for everybody. My customers, my supply chain, people who I'm buying from, people who I'm selling to, everybody should be getting the Shubha, including me. And I also need to get Labha because that's my business. So then what will that happen? What will that lead to? Ethical businesses, corporations that will not indulge in unethical practices, businesses that will actually protect the environment because they see that Shubha for everybody. So I don't want to mine more than what I need to. I don't need to cut the trees more than what I need to. Absolutely necessary. Doesn't mean that you cannot cut trees. You will have to cut trees. But then you'll cut the minimum number of trees and then make sure that you plant many more and take care of them until they become equivalent trees. And you actually have a positive impact on everything. So this is the kind of the drishti that we need to inject into every discipline that we are talking about. That is the fundamental thing when we say the goal of the IKS division is to rejuvenate and mainstream Indian knowledge systems, that Bharatiya Drishti into everything that we do.
I'm just reminded of when the General Hospital started, Swami had mentioned, I will be happy that day there are no patients.
See, that's the...
Swami had told this, success of the hospital is when there are no patients who will, in this area, who will need to come to the hospital.
See, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not saying anything different than what our...
No, Bhagwan came only to take us back to our roots. You mentioned about Ayurveda. And what does Ayurveda do? It tries to ensure that your Vata, Pitta, Kapha are in balance. And I think if that balance is there, then you will never fall sick. And you look at the whole body as a holistic being. You're not looking at one organ in isolation or looking at everything.
From a systems perspective. Basically, it's called analytico-synthetic perspective.
Yes.
That's the approach. Allopathy takes a reductionist approach. It is useful for some systems, but not for complicated systems, complex systems.
Yes.
So basically what happens is exactly what you're trying to say, that systems approach is what Ayurveda follows. Modern medicine is now getting around and they're also talking about systems approaches
yes,
now.
Yes.
See, this is the ultimate inevitable thing that
Inevitable
everybody
thing.
has to come to.
Exactly.
Because you can't pluck the petals of a flower and to describe the beauty. You can't investigate it that way. You have to see the entire
Exactly.
flower.
And you have to go to the roots. You have to see the branches. You have to see.
You have to see the entire flower in entirety. You cannot say where is the beauty of the flower and by start plucking the individual petals and then say is beauty here or is beauty here. You will not find that. You will be left with that entire bud which has no meaning.
If you look at the Mahabharata, Swami said, India is like Yudhishthira. There could be Arjuna, there could be Bhima who are powerful by themselves in various ways, but they will follow Yudhishthira. They are not misdirected. Whatever knowledge we have, it is guided, as you mentioned. Otherwise, we are creating knowledge, but we run the risk of that knowledge going into very adverse lanes and bylanes. And I think today, if you see the modern ills of the world, is because of that reason only.
It is because of that.
You have the brainiest of the people doing things that you wanted their energies to be spent in a different direction.
And all of it is just because of orientation difference. That's all.
That's all.
Just move that a little bit and then you'll have a much, much better place, because these are all brilliant people, hardworking people. Often when you talk to them individually, nobody means any ill for the world.
Yes.
But then system is such that it is set up in that direction. So you need to change it.
So that's why Swami said, when you look at the full 4 Purusharthas also, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Swami said, the Artha has to be earned through Dharma.
Yes.
And the Kama should be only for Moksha.
Yeah. I mean, both the Artha Kamas have to be bound by Dharma.
Yes.
So it will lead to moksha. Automatically.
Yes. We have, like in today's conference, last 3 days, we have people who are trying to substantiate what is already mentioned in the Vedas. The Vedas, for example, have told that if you do yajnas, you will get this kind of result. So you have people who are spending the time and energies to substantiate what is already there. One has to have that humility to see what has been mentioned, and instead of trying to spend time and energy and billions of dollars trying to figure out something which you don't know where it is going to go, you can spend that billions to only establish in the scientific way what is already there.
So, that reminds me of one this thing. See, Krishna was always the divine Bhagwan. There was no question about it, whether he was playing in the Nanda's house or whether he went to Mathura or wherever he went, he was the Bhagwan, always. So there were no differences in the diminishing of his divinity or increase in his divinity. He was always a divine Purusha. I mean, he was a Bhagwan. But then for Arjuna, he had doubts. Therefore, if you see during the Bhagavad Gita and all, because he thought he was he was my friend, he was my bandhu, all of these things, he said he had the doubts. So he had to show the Vishwarupa to him, to convince him. But that was not to establish whether he was Bhagwan or not. That was already an established fact. Where I'm coming to is that Vedameva Pramanam. There are no two questions about it. For us who are doubting Thomases, if you will, we need to understand a little bit. So we are studying it and then seeing, is the Vedavak right or wrong? But it is always right. We are just using the tools that we understand to see whether that is correct or not. But also one of the things that we have to realize on a serious note is that when we talk about the scientific methodology per se, itself needs a revision. Why is that? Because when you look at the possible ways in which you can acquire knowledge, it can be through what we call as a first-person inquiry, second-person inquiry, and third-person inquiry. Science today mostly is based on the third-person inquiry and a little bit of second-person inquiry that is based on the third-person inquiry. What is it? I'll just briefly say. First-person inquiry is basically your swanubhava, your experiential, direct experience. And second-person inquiry is based on the testimony of somebody who has experienced it, whether it is first person or third person. And third person inquiry is using objective tools to measure something. So for example, let's say you have a cup of tea. First person inquiry will say, I'll drink the tea and then say whether tea is good or not. That's first person inquiry. Second person inquiry is, I drink the tea and tell you how good the tea is. So you believe me that I am a trustworthy person because of my past actions or whatever. So you consider me to be an authentic person. So when I say that tea is good, you will say, okay, tea is good. Third person inquiry is where neither of us drink the tea. we put thermometers, we put weighing balancers, we put some sugar meters and then test out how much sugar is there, what is the temperature, what is the color, all of that stuff, weight and all of that. So that is a third person inquiry. Science today mostly relies on the third person inquiry thing. And as I said, part of the second person inquiry, which is Shabda Pramana, based on, if I have done experiments based on the third person inquiry, you will accept it. That's what science position is. Nothing wrong about it. That is the scientific methodology. Anything that does not follow it, we call it as unscientific. Now, our traditions, Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, have realized that the senses and the sensory things that we have are limited in many senses, and therefore they have actually gone beyond it. They have not seen the body, human being as a simple body. They have said we are also much beyond the body as well. So because of that, the first person inquiry is actually given primacy in our traditions. Today, whether you talk about neuropsychology and all of these disciplines of where consciousness studies, so research is being done, they are considering that third person inquiry is not enough. First person inquiry should be brought into the ambit of what will be acceptable as a methodology. And this means that the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, the methodology of the Indian Shastras, sciences, is actually much wider. And what we call as a scientific methodology is a subset of that.
Yes.
And this is very important, because then what that means, but again, these things are classified as Laukika Pratyaksha, Alaukika or Yogaja Pratyaksha in our Shastra. So we need to be, and so what science accepts is only the Laukika Pratyaksha. So basically whatever I can see, hear, touch, and Upakarana Pratyaksha. So that means if I can use a microscope, that is an Upakarana, a tool that I'm using to enhance my vision so that I can see a microbe, or a telescope to see something that is far away. That's essentially what that Upakarana Pratyaksha is. Enhances the ambit of what can be done. So now, even today, the science, even when they talk about the consciousness studies and things like that, they still slightly come back to the third person inquiry, because that is a fundamental shift that is required. So what you will see, a lot of studies where they will show you ECG or EEG, they will put that and then say, this is what happens when I go into meditation. This is a brain wave. You see, this is the change. So the point, what will a Indian practitioner say? He'll say, okay, you practice the meditation in this way, you will get the Paramananda Sukha that I am describing. That is what our tradition has been, because they accept the first person inquiry. So it opens up much larger things, but there is subjectivity in it. That is why you need a guru. Because otherwise I can be hallucinating and then claiming whatever I can, but that's not valid. So there is a proper discipline of sadhana and everything for a first person inquiry to be valid. And what is that? That is essentially the parampara that we talk about. So therefore, we have to expand it. And then you see these things hitting, because science, reductionist science is hitting the boundaries, of what it can explore. No amount of new technologies will really solve the problem, because you see, simple thing. There was an article, brilliant article by Professor Gautam Desaraju. He is a former director of IISc and one of the celebrated organic chemists in the world. He writes in that article the limits of reductionist thinking, and then why we need the systemic thinking of the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara and things like that. In that, one of the things, I might be paraphrasing it, so these are not exactly the words, but what he mentions there as an example is that even with all the advances that we have today, we cannot predict what will the melting point of water based on the properties of the water molecule. You cannot predict what will be the melting point of water. When will the water melt? If you just take, because that's what reductionist science claims, that you study the molecule, you assemble them, you should be able to predict the properties of the system. So system properties are emergent. They cannot be predicted using reductionist science. And that's where there is a serious need for rethink. That's where the Indian knowledge systems can actually help. So this is not this versus that.
Yes.
This is this plus that, this and that. And it will actually enhance the way that we do science. This is so important for especially complex systems. And all natural systems are complex. And so this is the real reason why we need to integrate it and take these things forward.
as I think it was Einstein, sir, who said, the problems that are created at one level of consciousness,
Exactly.
you have to go to a different level of
Different
consciousness
level. Yes.
to solve them. You can't solve them at the same level of consciousness.
Same level, yes. So that same thinking, if you do the same thinking and then try to expect a different result, it will be called madness, is what he said. But exactly that. So the problems that we have, existential crises, whether you talk about climate systems, whether you talk about economic systems, healthcare systems, all of these systems that we have today is because of that drishti.
Yes.
Unless you change that drishti, you're not going to get anything different. And that is a fundamental change that we need.
We say that modernization is consumerism, but actually, to be a modern man is to be a man which adheres to limitation. I think that is the smart way of living now, actually, because if you are splurging all the time, then we know where we are headed as a society, as a planet.
What you're talking about is sustainability, essentially a sustainable living.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the word sustainability in its broadest sense, it is nothing but dharma.
Dharma.
So all we are talking about is living as per the dharma. Because what does individual dharma mean? Aligning to the rhythm, the rhythm of the cosmos, the rhythm of the cosmos, if you will.
Yes.
If you align your behaviors and everything, thought processes to that, that is dharma. It will lead to yoga and kshema.
Yes.
That's what our Shastra says. And what is this alignment? See, there is a natural cycle.
Yes.
Whether you talk about living life cycle, there is a natural cycle for seasons, there is a natural cycle for carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle. You can take it to whatever level you want. As long as we align with it, our behaviors align with it, then we basically are living in a dharmic way. For example, if you look at the nitrogen cycle,
Yes.
today, more than 70% of the nitrogen that is in the planetary cycle is because of the anthropogenic causes, human causes.
Oh God.
Now, how well is that dharmic? Is that dharmic? You are overusing the fertilizer because of that. But if we actually align it and then make sure that we don't overuse fertilizers, I'm talking about a very laukika problem, practical problem. And I'm trying to relate to what dharma means there.
Yes.
So you see, use of proper fertilizers, not overusing pesticides, is dharma. If you think about it, because that's essentially aligning. It's not killing more insects or any insects that you don't want. You can actually manage that. Why do you have to kill everything? That's sustainability, biodiversity, everything comes in. That's sustainable living. So sustainability in the broadest sense, which you were saying, essentially being modern is not basically splurging or consumerism, but limiting ourselves. Essentially what you're talking about is a sustainable living. And that's exactly what dharmic living is. So would I want to be a modern man or a consumerist man? My answer would be I want to be a dharmic man.
Yes.
Dharmic humanity. So because then you're aligning the behavior of the humanity with the entire thing. So we don't talk about conquering nature, going back to that this thing. We talk about thriving with nature.
Exactly.
And that's really the dharma. Thriving with nature essentially is really nothing but sustainability in a broadest sense.
I was just thinking about what you mentioned. Initially, you're thinking that we are here to conquer nature can lead us so much astray because then we tend to exploit nature. We have to go back to the our culture where you revere nature.
There is a beautiful practice even today in villages. In fact, even in my hometown, in my home, we had one of these things. So there was, because even in past, they used to cut trees.
Yes.
Even in the past, they used to build houses.
Correct.
For that, they had to dig. So many insects would die. All of these things would happen. But then they were always conscious about it. So there was a mango tree that was giving a lot of mangoes in our village, in my home actually. And that was being widened. Road was being widened. So we had to cut that tree. Do you know what my parents did for that? First of all, they went and prayed.
Yes. I knew
Right?
that. Yeah.
And then they took the mangoes of that, made sure that they are ripe. And they took the mangoes of that tree, planted dozen of them, some of them in the vicinity, some of them elsewhere, and then prayed to the tree that I have made sure that your progeny is surviving. And then asked all the birds and everything to flow away because I have to cut the tree. And then they cut the tree. So there was so much conscious thing that, okay, I'm cutting a living thing. They had cut the tree. See, I could have gone there with a chainsaw. The chainsaw was brought the next day and then the tree was cut. But it could have been cut without all of these things. But then what these practices, living practices, show is that there is a sensitivity. That we see that divinity in everything and then that naturally ensures everybody thrives together. You see now those 12 plants, I will have those mangoes from the same tree.
Yes.
That gene pool is preserved. If I have to put modern words for
Correct.
it.
We are talking about this cycle, Vyashti, Samashti, Srishti, Parameshti. So I think if we think that we are part of his cycle, we are part of this cosmic continuum, then I think we will think that we are limbs of everything.
Yeah.
Then you don't want to hurt anything because you are limb of everything.
That's why Sahasra Sesha Purusha, Sahasraksha Sahasrapa. That's how we are. Limbs of the Bhagavan, eyes of the Bhagavan in every one of us.
The reason why India, in spite of its diversity, there were people who hundreds of years ago also, when they came to India and they saw the diversity, they said the writing is on the wall that it cannot survive as one nation. But if it has survived, which is a miracle by itself, and it continues to be one nation, even though every 100 kilometers you have a different language and a different food and culture and all that, it's because of this binding factor, which was, I think, the spirituality.
Yeah, because you see, the thing is, the observations were, if you look at it, were made mostly by Westerners.
Yes.
They wanted to impose their notion of a Westphalia state on Bharat. And Westphalia state has one language, one kind of people, one king and everything. That's in India, it was never the case. As I said,
the case.
In Malwa region, which is my karma bhumi now, they say pag mein neer, so dag mein neer and pag mein roti or something. So every step you can get roti, and then every this thing the language of Boli also changes. That's how diverse our country is. But then the idea is when you think about it from a Westphalia notion or a Western notion, you will think of India as a bunch of sticks that has been tied together. But from a Bharatiya perspective, it is not that. We are not a bunch of sticks, diverse kind of people tied together, bound by whatever be the principle. We are one people,
Correct.
one tree that has blossomed into many branches.
Correct.
Each branch may have its own way in which it has the tree, leaves, fruits, everything. But each branch is unique. But it's part of the same tree. We are like that. Our thought processes comes from that Rishi Parampara, Bharati Jnana Parampara. That is one and the same, whether you go anywhere. So you'll see the same reverence for the parents. Any part of the country.
Correct.
You'll see the same reverence for the sacred land and rivers. Anywhere you go in the Bharat.
Correct. Yes.
And you'll see the same sacred reverence for food.
Yes.
In India, you may not be able to, if you ask for 10 rupees, you may not be able to get that. But if you say, I'm hungry, feed me,
Yeah.
there will be no part in India will you find, even if that fellow is eating, they will give you some part of their own food to share. And that's the kind of ethics that we have. That's the Bharatiyata. See, that feeling is same. I may be sharing roti or ragi sankati or chapati or rice, but it's all the same. We are sharing our food because we see the same pain of hunger. So that's the drushti is the same. And Annam Parabrahma Swarupa is, everybody feels that. So these are the kind of cultural, it's like the one thing that is, it's more of a plurality of expression
Yes.
than diverse things being unified.
Yeah. I think it is not unity in diversity, it's diversity in unity.
It's plurality of expression. That's
Yes,
what
that's
it is.
all.
I'm expressing one thing in many ways. That's all it is.
Whenever you receive something, you are grateful. You are grateful to the sun, you are grateful to the moon, you are grateful to the plants, you are grateful to the mountains, and you feel you should serve them, you should serve your neighbor. I think that is the beauty of...
Yes, exactly. You're perfectly right. Did you know there was our Varanasi,
Yes.
Kashi, right? One of the holiest places for us. Ganga flows. And our Dharma Shastras and Smritis say that you should not defecate in the rivers. Should not pollute the rivers in any way. So it was the case. So Ganga, the way in Varanasi it is built, all the sewage used to flow backwards, not into the Ganga. It used to go other way. And Britishers, in all their wisdom, they wanted to build a canal, a drainage sewer that would come just before the Assi Ghat, where the Assi river meets this thing. And there were hunger strikes by people of Kashi. And Britishers were there because they did not want sewer to join Ganga. Britishers went ahead and then brute force, they did it anyway. But see, this was the kind of thing, and it took another so many hundreds of years for that to be closed down. These are the kind of things that we revered. We did not want to. Then exactly the point, the reason why I was bringing this up is to show that we will not exploit the rivers anymore.
Yeah.
We will not exploit the plants. We will not exploit the forest. We'll consider them. Vanadevata is there, so you don't exploit the forest. You take it what you need. That's it, and then make sure that it grows well. This is the fundamental philosophy that we had.
And now to bring back all this knowledge and to bring it into the schools and colleges, I think that is the most challenging and the most beautiful adventure because
Yes,
I know,
it is.
Because I think once the youngsters also know the treasure that they have,
Yeah.
then they will be more excited than before to unlock it.
And we're also very well positioned now. See, the
Yes.
thing is, honestly speaking, this 1,000 years of various invasions and
Yes.
British colonial rule
Correct.
really deprived us.
Yes.
So if you think about it, my grandfather's generation was worried about getting 2 square meals.
Yeah.
They did not know whether they will have 2 square meals in a day.
Correct.
That was the situation that our country was in when in 1947 we got independence. They really
Yeah.
sucked the country dry. From that situation, we were in 60s, there were famines, we were waiting for food to come on the ships. And then they would make radio announcements saying that, okay, the ship has come, now you'll get some 2 kilos of wheat in your ration, this thing. That was how bad the situation was. And country pulled together. And then what did they do? They made sure we are food self-sufficient and all. So then came my father's generation. Because of the food sufficiency and all that, they were not worried about 2 square meals anymore. They were worried about stable jobs and incomes. So they always wanted government jobs. That was aspirational thing for that
Correct.
generation. If you see, my grandfather's generation was, if I can survive without starvation, that is good. My father's generation was, if I can get a good government job, I'm settled for life. Now my generation and our generation today is talking about, okay, may not always be government job, I need a bigger package. That's what most of the youth think right now. But then if you look at the next generation that is coming up, is in the schools, is in the colleges now, they are not satisfied with just starving, living without starving or having a government job or having a better package. Now they are seeking meaning of life.
Correct.
And now this is where they can easily basically tap into the wisdom that has been passed on. It's like this treasure box that we have that we just have to open for our kids. And then when I say this, we have to understand that these things don't exist only in the Vedic hymns. They also exist in the Puranas, literature, Sahitya, Lokagita, and so many practices. The same Vedic truth that is said in the Vedic Richas is also being told in Abhangs, is being told by singers who come in Sankranti, Haridasa,
all the folk songs.
all of that is there. So the wisdom has penetrated everywhere. And this is something that in order for us to preserve the Indian knowledge systems and then promote it and take it forward, we have to do few things. We have to preserve our culture. We have to preserve our languages.
Yes.
We have to preserve these treasures that have been passed on. So it is not just the manuscripts or the Vedas. We have to understand that we have to preserve the Haridasas, Yakshagana, all of these traditions. Any tradition that you think about, we have to make sure that all of these people are nurtured and are protected by the society so that these values get passed on to our children. And there can be many blends in how we do things. You know, there are some YouTubers from Bengaluru who actually go and then take a guitar and then sing Purandaradasa Kritis in bus stations and things. Just they are young kids. They are doing it, and that popularizes the songs. And that's exactly how you take it. That's how they did it. We have to maybe adopt new technologies. That's okay. But then we do. The spirit has to be same. The drishti has to be Bharatiya, regardless of technologies.
No, I think that's what, once everything is done with the spirit of being a Bharatiya, then you can use all modern tools.
Use all of it. You should use it.
You should use it.
In fact, our rishis would have been the most unhappy if we say that I'm going to not use some knowledge, because even in Bhagavad Gita, there was a very famous, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, right, Jnane sadrusham pavitram he vidyate. In the Mahabharata serial, there was a beautiful dialogue. Krishna says to Arjuna, Arjun, ज्ञान का तिरस्कार मत करो, ज्ञान पवित्र होता है, ज्ञान पूजनीय होता है. ज्ञान का तिरस्कार मत करो. The knowledge has to be adorned. See, do you think Nikola Tesla, who selflessly gave everything, put all of his living moments to improve the world and gave it all for free without even patenting any of them, is any less than a rishi? He is a modern rishi. Maybe he was born in America. That does not matter for us. For us, he is a rishi. We cannot be narrow-minded in saying that only people here will be rishis. They are also rishitulyas. They are rishis. No less than that. And we have to use all of the things that have been developed.
I think Bharatiya is not limited to the geographical boundaries of India. A Bharatiya can be anywhere, and anybody who has the spirit of a Bharatiya is a Bharatiya. And
It's a Bharatiya.
Is a Bharatiya.
If you think like a Bharatiya, you are a Bharatiya, whether you are in Africa, America, or anywhere else.
Yeah. If you have a Rati for Bharat, if you have Rati for Bhagwan, if you have Rati for light, knowledge,
seeker. That's what a Bharatiya is.
A Bharatiya is. And I think that is the vision of the Vedas also. That it's indeed very, very heartening that all these knowledge that has been there, and now you have so much of not only political will, as well as you have this whole interest of an army of people getting into it now, which is really, really heartening. And today we have youngsters who want to delve into our culture, even though they are benefiting from the advancements of gadgets and everything, but at the same time they also want to tune into our past. And as you very rightly said, today's youngsters, by the time they are 13, 14, because knowledge is at their fingertips, they have been there, done that. You know, they have already explored so much by the time that they are already asking those existential questions. Which people...
And it's very fair that they should ask these questions.
Yeah.
And because no amount of technology can answer that.
Yeah.
No amount of technology will answer that. It will only create that kind of a maya jala. It will not answer this. Right. So kids are asking those questions.
What is the meaning of life? I think earlier people used to ask when they were 50, 60, when they retired, they're asking, "Maine kya kiya mere jeevan mein?" But now you have 15-year-old asking.
They're saying, "What should I do?" And this is now, see, it is a responsibility of the teachers of this country, of the parents of this country, everyone, to make sure that our children's questions are answered in the Bharatiya spirit. For that, it may mean that we have to study. We have to get exposed. We may have pursued life where we were worried about bigger packages and things like that, but now we have to do things, set an example to our kids. Otherwise, how will they learn? And it will be the greatest disservice that we are going to do to our children if we don't show them this path.
Yeah. In fact, sometime back, I remember talking to one of very eminent scholars who's part of India's think tank. And when I refer to the current generation sometimes not being able to take to the path, he said, don't blame them. Blame the generation prior to that, because when they asked the questions, they did not get the right answers. If they had got the right answers, if they get the right answers, they will pursue. They
are the most passionate people. If I did not think that the youth of India today would not understand what Indian knowledge system says and things like that, I would have not been the national coordinator for AICTE's division. There is hope. There is so much hope. I see so much positivity there. And I'm actually energized by the energy of these kids.
Wow. That's really so thrilling. It's really so thrilling to hear that. If you can share, in this entire journey of yours now, heading the Indian knowledge systems, what has been, when you look back at the work that has happened in this section, in this mission, 2-3 bright spots, when you look at that, you feel so much energized and you feel, wow, there is so much hope, and what I've done is nothing and there's so much more to do. Scenes or moments which really thrill you to your bones.
See, the thing that there is so much to do, what we have done is nothing, is a feeling that I constantly have.
I know, whatever you do is still a drop.
Whatever you touch in Bharat
is still a drop.
Has infinite possibilities. Whatever you touch, wherever you go, whatever you do. So that part I have given up. I said, okay, I'll do whatever is possible.
I can.
Even, in fact, I don't even think I'm doing it. I think I'm the Karada, Hari Karta, Naham Karta, and then you go and do whatever is in front of you. You just keep doing. But then on that note, I have to tell you that this Indian Knowledge Systems Division was formed in 2020. But this has been built on a foundation of many, many people who have worked selflessly.
Yes.
What the IKS division has done is it has tried to bring those people together and then has tried to catalyze a little bit of that thing and involve youngsters in a big way. That's essentially why many of our programs are geared towards that as well. So that they see, they can understand, they can get first-hand authentic information so that the questions don't go unanswered.
Yes.
And that's how we wanted to do these things. So, I mean, in terms of what kind of these things that we have seen, I mean, one of the things when this division was started was IKS was thought to be a fringe subject that is politically motivated, or whatever accusations that typically are hurled at it. But then as we worked for a few years, sincerely and diligently with all the scholars and together, now people don't see this as a fringe thing. They see that there is a honesty in the purpose and sincerity of the purpose, honesty in the way that we approach and transparency in the way that we approach things. Because of these things, there is a credibility. Now people don't talk about this as a fringe thing. It's become a mainstream. Now people, the questions have come from, do we need IKS too? How should we do IKS?
Wow.
That's a big transformation that has happened. Otherwise, people were saying, why do you need IKS? Now people know we need IKS. Now the questions are about how do we do it? Yeah, there are quality differences everywhere. Some high, some low, all of these things happen. But this is something that we'll resolve.
Yes.
See, these are all continuous conversations that we have and then move forward in the right direction. That's how things have to be done. And things will be done that way, I guess. And so I think these are all things.
Anything that you feel so happy about? Anything that has really made you feel fulfilled to see?
I mean, every moment I work with my team is actually fulfilling when I see these kind of scholars work and come together. And I would say some of the things that have really I was very happy about and gave a sense of achievement in some sense, however small that was, were some things that when we said we will accept proposals in Bharatiya Bhashas. All the scientific proposals, we said we will accept it in Bharatiya Bhashas. There was one of the applicant who was in tears saying that I cannot explain what I'm talking about Natya Shastra in English. I'll write it in my own mother tongue.
Oh, okay.
And it came out so beautifully that project was actually funded. Similar thing happened with many, many PIs and students. So then that we said, okay, expression in Matra Bhashas is something that we need to do. Bharatiya Bhashas is something that we need to do. And that has been one of the pushes of the division. Of course, there is Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, which is working solely on promoting Bharatiya Bhashas. But incorporating that even into writing research proposals is something that we have done, and it gives us great happiness about that we have done this. And then youngsters coming and dedicating themselves into doing PhDs in this area. I mean, think about it. They could have gone to any other area, but they have chosen to come to core areas of Indian knowledge systems and are doing some fundamental work in this area. That's something that is really gladdening. And I meet them many a times here and there whenever we go for conferences and things like that. And it's really a pleasure talking to kids like that.
Beautiful. And I think when you mention about Bharatiya Bhasha, propagating the languages of India, I think that is so vital because our culture is so entwined with the language.
Exactly.
We can't, a lot of things we cannot explain in English. I think
you can't.
You cannot explain it in English. So it's so important.
Not just English. If you take any other civilizational language,
exactly,
which has a different civilizational substratum,
absolutely.
You can't express it.
Our culture is expressed through our languages.
Because that is the civilizational substratum that we have, what we are tapping into. So it is okay if I talk in Hindi or Tamil or Malayalam or Bengali. They will all basically, because they are tapping onto the same
culture,
substratum base, they'll all be the same. That's okay. But if I change this foundation and make it something else, then it becomes completely different.
Wow. And you have attended any number of conferences and you continue to attend so many conferences. How was it to be in Prasanthi Nilayam and be a part of the Vedic conference here?
Oh, it was a real pleasure. And especially because this was my first visit to this holy place, and listening to so many distinguished speakers and talking to them afterwards also. All of that and the way that the entire proceedings were conducted on time in such a disciplined way was really pleasure, really pleasure. And look forward to many of these.
Your takeaways from this visit to Puttaparthi?
Two things. Timeliness is really important, and it's really something that I saw in practice despite such a large organization. And then that kind of a humility in service was something that I take away. And in terms of you talking about intellectual takeaways, so there was a presentation on how the Vedic mantras basically actually coordinate or bring in sync the various parts of the brain, and it was demonstrated very clearly what is the impact of that. So that was a very impactful thing. And there was also some basically interactions that I had about bringing this into schools and how do we do that, and there were some discussions that we had. And then also the research facility that I saw today here is really the classic state-of-the-art facility. And I think this is kind of a blending of all of these elements really represents a Bharatiya. That's my biggest takeaway from here.